Hi guys, got a Nintendo 2DS XL here. As you can see, the screen is broke. Going to stick in a new screen. This is the screen, top screen. A little tricky one. I picked this screen up off Amazon. I'll drop a link below if you want to pick one up off Amazon yourself. Tricky little repair. If you've ever done the top screen in a Nintendo DS, you should be okay. But it is a little bit tricky because some of the top is glued. So, you know, it's not just all just taking it apart. But if you just follow the steps, you should be able to do it. First thing you want to do is make sure you have any game SD card or stylus if that's in it taken out. And then the first step to taking it apart is these 4 tri-wing screws. Once you've those 4 out, you're popping off the back. You might be able to get that with your fingernails. I don't really have fingernails, so I'm going to use a little spludger. I lifted up the camera just so I wasn't hitting it. Start prying at this. You might be able to get it with your fingernails or a pry tool. But just work your way from back to front, right around it, and it'll start coming out for you. Now then, don't just pull it, be very careful because there is ribbon cables in here. There's one at the back near the hinge. Okay, when you've got your shell coming apart, you've got 2 speaker cables each side and then there's a ribbon at the back. So we're going to just pull the speakers, just be careful that you don't damage your wires. And I'll just zoom in down to this ribbon so you can see it better. Here we are zoomed in on this connector. And it just kind of lifts towards it, like so. And there we have our back. It came apart. This little slider has fell out, it just goes here, it's fine, but just remember, if it happens to you, to make sure you put it back. It's happened to me with DS's and Game Boys, where you've put the whole thing back together and then you're like, oh no, I forgot the power switch or whatever. Okay, the next step we're going to do is disconnect the battery. Okay, to remove the battery, you first want to remove this connector. It shouldn't be too bad. Next I'm going to remove this connector, which is just goes straight up. This isn't really necessary to get the battery out, but because you kind of have to pry the battery out, I'd like to remove them just so that there's no risk of damaging these cables when I start to pry at the battery. The battery is stuck down with a little pad, so you kind of have to pry it a little bit. The next thing you want to do is release this little ribbon. It just flicks straight up and then it comes straight out. Lift this a touch. Just to help. The next thing we're going to do is undo this little housing piece here. These are a little Phillips screw. And then we're going to remove the red wire that runs along with it. The red wire just kind of clips in along. And maybe leave that with the 2 screws so you know. The next thing we want to do is undo this ribbon for the camera. Same thing, that ribbon just flicks up, or that connector just flips up. And then the whole piece should lift out. And there's your camera. And then this little sensor also has to come out because we're going to try and get out the hinge. We don't want it to get damaged, it just lifts out. We're also going to remove this little LED housing. Let's get under it and it should flick right up. There, that is out. Okay guys, I just sped up this section because it's about 3 to 4 minutes in actual length of me heating this. I heated it very gently because I was worried about, with the white plastic, that I would scorch it if I tried to go too quick. So you can kind of see, maybe I keep checking with my hand just to make sure that I'm not getting it too hot. Towards the end you will notice I use a pry tool just to kind of get it going. I've used the heat gun that's attached to my solder station, but a hairdryer would work fine for this. Once you have that covered off, your next step is these 4 Phillips screws in each corner. Remember to keep your screws separate now guys, because we've got different sizes, different kinds. Some Phillips, some tri-wing. You probably could get that cover off, like just going at it with a knife, but it just seems easier to heat the glue up. This just pries off this kind of cover here, so just get your something underneath it and just work your way around. We're after breaking that there, are we? That's not too worried about, it'll be okay once the console's back together. The important thing is to remember doing something like this. I mean, at the minute you have a console, it doesn't work. So, okay guys, the next thing you have to do is get this hinge out. Now this is actually a tricky little thing. It's a bit of prying. I was kind of getting in and levering it. I haven't showed it all on camera because I had to move it all around and you wouldn't see it. But basically, I was getting in here and kind of turning it. You can see the little marks I've left, and levering it out and going back each side, kind of like that sort of motion, and eventually it will come out. Now it's worth noting that it does go in a certain orientation. You can see it's kind of it's flat on the sides, so just bear that in mind when you're putting it back together. That's going to have to go in a certain orientation. The next thing we're going to do is get the top away from the bottom. Important thing is just be gentle doing that bit. You don't want to stress anything out. You definitely don't want to rip any of your ribbon cables, anything like that. Just be gentle, you should be fine. Remember, you want to get this metal bushing off. I'm just going to have to roll this cable up. We're not too worried about this because I mean this is our old screen, but just obviously when you're putting your new one through, you're going to have to be very gentle. This next section is just a couple of minutes fast forward again of me heating the top screen. What you're meant to do is heat around the edges, and it's not uncommon here for the screen to come out in sections. And you'll get down to the last section, which is glued to like the lens or the screen cover. Basically what you do here is you heat around the edge and you slowly pry it up, trying to undamage the lens. Now this is the trickiest part of the whole thing, this whole repair. I always find this is the hardest part to get right. Unfortunately, at the end of this part, you'll see I end up making a mistake. As you saw from the still there, I scratched the lens of this, taking it off. I'm not sure if it's because it's very cold in here, it's the middle of winter, if it cooled down too quick or if I was just rushing because I was trying to be quick for the video, but either way, I scratched this. That wouldn't be the end of the world, because you can get replacement lenses fairly cheap. Unfortunately, I then was annoyed with it and ended up cracking this case. So, look, you can also get replacements of those. I was going to scrap the video and just think, right, I just may do it again the next time I have to do one. And I thought, no, because this could happen to you, it's worth seeing. So I'll drop links down below for these two bits as well in case you need to pick them up. The screen, this bit, the lens is actually fairly cheap, a couple of quid. So I mean, you know, no harm, if it's not the big end of the world if you scratch it. The only thing you have to do is transfer your antenna across and this screw. So just don't hurt the wire of the antenna. Not when I say screw, magnet, screw. Yeah, just a magnet that closes it. The easiest way to get this magnet is to pop off the lens because it's probably stuck to it. The glue on this lens, they do actually be glued down quite well. I don't have any nails, which makes this kind of thing harder. Okay guys, I got this started just off camera because my lack of nails was making it hard. I just started to peel. This is your outside. So this side has your sticky side on it, so I just peel it off this. So this then goes in like this. You can leave that on for now. I just kind of got started so to make sure I was able to get it when it at the end, I wasn't going to get my nail into the corner. And pop the magnet in. Keep the screen as clean as possible, trying to avoid getting any sort of dirt on it. here we have the new screen, which, as I said before, I'll link in the description if you want to pick one up. If you've never done one of these before, I actually think you probably would be better off just buying the new lens and as well, because it saves an awful lot of hardship. Knowing you have it there, it saves trying to get it to come apart. And also, if you have it, you can also try, see how you get on, and if it doesn't work out, you have the backup there. This just has a film on it, and it will go in that orientation we have. So just make sure we line it up correctly. I'll take this film off this screen. It should be okay, but it is worth just checking your screen to make sure there's no dust or anything on it. And then just push it into the adhesive film the whole way around. Now for one of the trickier parts of this, which I always find, is putting this metal bushing back. You have to roll this cable kind of have it rolled kind of along. You're not kind of rolling it straight onto itself, you're kind of rolling it diagonally along, and then your bushing will come through. Next thing then is we want to feed our red cable through. Stick that in its little channel in a minute. So you want your cable gone through, your bushing here, and then these there's two little holes for this, on two little tabs that sit here, and then you can shove your bushing back in. This is what you're aiming for. Like, this hinge doesn't go in the whole way, it's just sitting there so it can go into the next piece. I did see one for someone before where someone glued this. I don't know if that's necessary, but the next thing then is to pop on our case. So just make sure you have this sitting correctly before you do. And then just start popping it back together. Don't be too forceful, just work your way around. It should pop back together. The next step then is your 4 little tiny screws. The next part is to put back on your back cover, and you see you have a square notch here and a square notch on the plastic, and a square notch here, and a circular notch here, and a circular notch here. That's how you know you're in the right orientation. There's a good chance, like I've had to bend this one, as you can see, to get it off, that you mightn't have enough glue left here. So just stick a little bit of super glue just to help. And then just hold that down till it sets. Okay guys, the next thing we're going to want to do is get this rolled up and inside this hinge so we can put the console back together. Same kind of thing, you're kind of rolling it slightly long way, like slightly oblong should help. This is one of the fiddlier parts of this. This is kind of what you're aiming for when you've done. I couldn't do it there. The camera is here to me, so I say it every time. I need to get myself a proper boom so that the camera is no longer in my way. Anyway, you want to feed your wire, your red wire through. You might have to turn this, you know, as you put it on. Sorry guys, I had the same issue with the camera, but you don't want to force this. Just keep, you know, bending your hinge back and forth as you work it in, and then eventually it'll kind of slide through for you. You know, gentle pressure. You don't want to go too hard. You don't want to damage your cable. You don't want to damage your hinge. You're kind of caught with this cut out, so you're just trying to get it to angle, and eventually it'll slide through for you. Okay guys, now it's time to put the hinge back in. Now it's worth noting, you won't have to do this if you didn't, but if you had to put a new case on it like I did, there's a little plastic insert that goes inside the hinge of the top part. That probably won't be on your new part. Now I found the easiest way to get the old one out was to just kind of put a little cut on this and break it apart, because I didn't want to damage it. So there's actually a little notch in this and a notch in the hinge. I probably should have done it before. That just slides in. And with that in, you want to put your hinge in. Your hinge can only go in one direction. The next thing we want to do is take out our ribbon. Then just remember, the ribbon has to go up through this hole in the board. Next thing you want to do is put your little LED lens thing bent my tweezers. The LED thing just drops through the little hole, and there's a little housing for it. Now my camera lens never fell out, but a lot of the times they will fall out, so if yours is out, just make sure, remember to pop that back in. And the next then is the little sensor. And then that connector just goes in here. The next piece to install is the actual camera itself. And then install its connector. Next thing we want to do is put back in this little black cover, and just remember to put your red wire up behind it. You could probably do it after, and then that just held in with the two little screws. The next thing we want to do is put back on this connector. This just pushes down. Sorry, forgot to mention, this goes up this area and down. That's the kind of route it takes. This is the kind of routing you want on this when it's done. The next thing we want to do is reinstall the battery, and then for this last connector, which has nothing in it, it's the camera from here, you know, so it'll go like that. So I'm going to remove it. Much easier to do it that way, and then put the camera back in Now one of the last things before you close it up, and I've done it to so many handhelds, you get to this part, you've done it with Game Boys, everything, you forget that the volume slider has fallen out. And you forget to put it back in, and you rebuild the console and you have it all back together. You go to adjust the volume and realise, oh crap, there it is on the bench. So just make sure that doesn't fall out on you before you go to close the shell. The last two connectors are these two little speakers. And I've lost my volume slider again. Now there's that back in it now. Like I said, don't forget the volume slider. Make sure it's hooked onto the little volume knob. So we have our volume in right, and then we're going to start snapping this back together. Probably best to start at the hinge side. Okay guys, so once you shouldn't have to snap that too hard, like it should go together, you know, fairly okay. And once you've it done, the last thing is your 4 tri-wing screws. Okay, with that done, it's the moment of truth. Oh, excellent. Excellent. This is why I got this started. Because I have no nails, I never would have got up. Touch is working now here. That's okay, guys. A tricky little repair. Lots of little fiddly bits. The big thing is to take your time and don't force that. Nothing on this repair really needs to be forced. And the other thing I think I would recommend, if you've never bought or if you've never fit one of these, I would buy your replacement lens. That means you can either do the way of doing it where you push the whole screen out the front once you've the back taken off, or if you do it the way where you cut it apart, cut it away, that if you scrape it like I did, you've it ready to go, you're not waiting for one to arrive. I will drop the links down below for the replacement screen, the replacement lens, and if you do what I do and end up breaking that, do one of those as well. You shouldn't break that. That was my own fault for getting impatient. But anyway guys, a tricky little repair, but just one that can be done as long as you take it slow. Thanks for watching.